Okay. And we're live. All right. So hi, I'm Trinity Villanueva. My pronouns are she, her. I'm wearing blue glasses and a gray hoodie and gold hoops. My hair is slicked back. I'm here today with this amazing new colleague in the public art sector with me. Her name is Lisa Mariam. We're going to meet her in a second. I'm doing an interview with her today for our Public Art Reston Emerge newsletter. So we're happy that you can join in and get some of the goods with Lisa today. And so Lisa, just kind of leaving it off to you quickly, if you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Lisa Mariam. My pronouns are also she, her, and I have brown shoulder length hair, and it's pretty straight. And I'm joining you today from the office at ArtsFairfax. And I have been working at ArtsFairfax for the past 11 years. I started out at ArtsFairfax as just the grants manager. And once we started working with the county on the master arts plan for Fairfax County, I was really excited about that project, and in particular, the public art aspect of it, and have really enjoyed contributing to the plan and conducting some temporary public art projects on behalf of Arts Fairfax to gather feedback for that master arts plan. And I've been in the arts for my entire career, and my degree is in art history. And I used to work at a museum in Washington, organizing traveling exhibits, and have spent a lot of time in the community volunteering, like at my kids' schools, and always kind of was called upon to do arts related work as a cultural liaison with the PTAs. And I've really enjoyed my time at Arts Fairfax because it's enabled me to combine my interest in the arts with community in my own backyard and connecting those two.
I love that. We have a lot in common. Quick question. So you organized traveling art exhibits? Where exactly, if you don't mind mentioning?
So this program was called the National Lending Service. And it was designed to share the National Gallery's collection with museums throughout the United States, areas that the gallery held in depth. So it ended up that actually the exhibits had a broader interest than just US museums. And so some of the exhibits traveled all over the world. And it was exciting to get to see so many, small university museums and galleries all over the country, and traveling around organizing those shows. I worked with like the staff from virtually every department in the museum to put together the exhibits and basically share the collection.
That's really cool. When I used to work in education, I used to use a company. I wish I knew about this because the only thing is sometimes with when I was using the last company that I had, it was the same exhibits over and over sometimes, and there wasn't too much diversity in artists, right? And so like every year it was like the same 20. And I was kind of always looking to like expand the palette of others. So that's really great. A lot of important work. So you mentioned Arts Fairfax in your intro, and I know that you're still there. So can you talk a little bit about what is Arts Fairfax for those who, might not know what Arts Fairfax is, and maybe even for those who might think they know? It would be great to just hear you talk about it.
Yeah. So Arts Fairfax is the local arts agency for Fairfax County. So we've been designated as the sort of umbrella organization for the arts in the county. And we provide many different services. So I think I also mentioned that we are a grant maker. So we have in non-COVID times, we had about 5 different grant programs. More recently, we have been just doing operating support and emergency grants for artists and arts organizations. And we also have an arts education program. And we have artist residencies in the schools. We work with the senior centers to place artists and put on a creative aging festival each year in May in conjunction with Older Americans Month. We do professional development workshop for artists and arts organizations. Most recently, you were able to participate, or your staff was able to participate in the Creative Resilience, the Art of Mass Gatherings, and that was really focused on capacity building for festival organizers and large event programmers. And we also provide information about the arts to the general public. So we have a calendar of events, we have an artist directory, and we are putting out information about all different arts related activities that are happening in the county, whether it's performing arts, concerts, performances, art exhibits, classes, camps. You can find it all on our website. And we
Your
recently
website.
had,
Okay.
which is artsfairfax.org. And we recently had our signature event, which is the Arts Awards. And each year, this was the 10th anniversary of the Arts Awards event. We give awards in a variety of categories. They fluctuate each year. The largest award is the Jinx Hazel Award. And then there's Arts Education Awards, Arts Impact Awards that are recognizing both philanthropists and artists and arts organizations that are making significant contributions to our community.
I definitely had the pleasure of attending. It was my first time being there. It was really great. I think to just, and hearing from my staff who talked about how great the Creative Resilience, the Art of Mass Gatherings was, and then to like be a part of something immediately following. It was a really nice experience to, you know, kind of feel normal in a way again, and be surrounded by so many people who really just understand at the core how important art is, right? Whether it's performing,
really, yeah.
it was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And I, you know, it's funny, it's like I'm gonna plug him, and I maybe I'll send it to him. But I was able to sit at Pat McIntyre's table, and she sits on the board for Public Art Reston, but I know that she's also the secretary for Arts Fairfax. And it was a pleasure because I was seated next to the artist who created your awards, JP, and he is a digital fabricator. He's amazing. His brain is incredible. But it was just really great that even at the smaller touches, right, within that luncheon, to see that the awards themselves were pieces of art that were sent home with the award recipients, and they were each similar but also different. And like, so it was really, really cool to have, you know, just a great conversation. You know, sometimes when you're working in the arts sector, that you're not the artist, you know, sometimes you get a little distance from the work itself, and to sit next to somebody who does it all of the time and breathes it, it was a gift. So it was done really well, I would say. The luncheon was executed beautifully. I really enjoyed myself. Definitely enjoyed the dessert. Very much. So Yeah, there's a lot. I feel like when you're talking about Arts Fairfax, like um you started off by saying it's like this umbrella organization, and it really is, because you hit all these different pillars of education and grant making and artist residencies and trying to reach a spectrum of diverse audiences. It seems like it really echoes the statements of Linda Sullivan, your CEO and president's opening remarks, right? Of like the diversity in Fairfax County, and all of those things. So I didn't know if you wanted to speak a little bit about, I know we were going to talk about specifically public art and what that means to you, but maybe even just, you mentioned too that you've been in the arts for a really long time. So what does it mean to you, and now working in this sector, and giving back? If you want to just expand on that.
Well, it was interesting to me that you said, you really enjoyed sitting with the artist who designed the Arts Awards. And I totally agree with you. Like, my favorite part of my job is working with the artists. I love, when I'm able to get out, and I like make a point of doing it every week, get out to, whether it's a studio visit or a performance or an exhibit, and hopefully, an artist talk. I'll be like at Tefra tomorrow night. I think I mentioned to you, like, to be able to actually get to know who's actually like creating the art. That's really important to me. And it like renews me. And that's what keeps me really excited about being in this field. Um, Sorry, that was like a total tangent. But
All good, all good. This is to be, organic.
So another really important, I think, role that I've played here is being a connector, between, like, I have the opportunity to work with Fairfax County government and local arts organizations and artists, and being able to see opportunities to connect people. And that also really excites me, of like, being able to introduce, whether it's an artist or, or an organization, and, helping to just help people to do their work in the arts, really, like by making those connections. Sometimes it's a funder, whatever it is, and just sharing that information. That is a really important role for our organization as a whole, like not just putting the information out about performances, but also making sure that all those resources are really accessible, so that, helping you to do your work, and putting all those important pieces together that will make a strong arts ecosystem in the county.
I love that. I love that you use the word connector. I think a conversation that I have in so many various ways with a lot of people who may not be so directly tied to, our work, is like they will see a piece of art, or they will enjoy an experience, or maybe they will, see a mural or a sculpture, in a park somewhere. And that's it. Maybe they will really quite enjoy it, or maybe they won't, whatever it is, they had that moment in time, that brief snapshot. But I think a lot of times what gets lost is how it got there, right? And how it came to be. And there's so many hands and so many people within each of these communities that bring life to these things. And, and then it lives on and breathes on in different ways. And then it's, you're only guessing how it's going to be received, but that process and just getting there at the end can be a mammoth of a task. And to be a person who sees themselves as a connector in this type of community, I think just speaks volumes of what you do, what Arts Fairfax does, how lucky and fortunate Arts Fairfax is to have someone like you as well, and someone who genuinely enjoys talking to the artists, right? And that's like your favorite part. I think is really important too. Sometimes we get so lost in the day-to-day tasks of what we're doing. And in like any job, it's a job. But then remembering and reminding yourself of, let me, like you mentioned, and I'll mention again, Tefra ICA is going to have, something tomorrow, because today is Thursday, October 21st. So tomorrow, Friday, October 22nd. And those things are really important because it's also showing up for those events and making sure that the community is held, especially now,
Absolutely.
pivoting into this pandemic, and these times are changing. Like you said, you had like 5 different types of grants, and now like you've been focusing so much on, remind me again, it was emergency and
operating support. And
right.
then this past year, we had the Arts Ignite Recovery Grant, which is sort of a hybrid between the two. It was like trying to get back to a project, but projects that are more focused on reopening in the COVID atmosphere, like having events that are like outside or in unconventional spaces, where you might be limited in like the number of people that could be inside, or people, being more comfortable being in an outdoor setting, and also dealing with a lot of the social justice issues that have come up. So making sure that you're working with artists from, often marginalized communities and serving areas that don't have as much arts. I always like say that in Fairfax County, we have 9 magisterial districts. And as the county's designated local arts agency, we serve all 9 of those magisterial districts. But some of those districts have a lot of arts activity, like Reston, Hunter Mill, is a special tax district, and McLean is as well, special tax district. So we have these amazing community centers with beautiful theaters and, more resources than some other areas have very few arts organizations in them and no venues at all. So the challenge has always been like encouraging organizations, to do some programs, whether it's at a school or a center, or whatever is available in those areas, to bring the arts to all of the communities, all 1.1 million residents.
Right. And, there's so much that you just said there. I try to jot down some notes. Yesterday, I was having a conversation with, she sits on a lot of different boards, but particularly her name is Lila Gordon, and she is the executive director of Reston Community Center. And she is such an advocate, for community centered, events and community centered, just things that really galvanize communities in a positive and beneficial way. And she said something that stuck with me, and it's probably going to stick with me forever. But she said, a lot of times people will, and sorry, Lila, if I don't do your quote justice, I wasn't taking notes, but mental ones. It is the idea around food and water and all of these things that a lot of people in communities see as such an immediate need. And a lot of times art sort of gets, the back burner because it's like, well, why do we need it? Right. But what arts is the long game. It is feeding the soul. And so when you talk about communities that are more marginalized communities, or communities that have been historically and purposefully ignored at times, you will see that some of the soul of that community is lost. The character's not there. And one of the big reasons why is because the accessibility to having something that feeds it, right? And to the arts and to music and entertainment and all of those things sometimes can be missing. And I can speak from experience, from my upbringing. But then when you go into places like Fairfax County, where the arts thrives a little bit more, and, or places like New York City or LA or New Orleans, I mean, like, we can talk about those places that really give to the heart and soul of what that community has built. The arts really plays a part in that, because if you took away art, people would notice, right? So kind of pivoting into, a nice segue into what you just talked about, accessibility and social justice issues, and the importance of thriving artistic communities. what does public art mean to you? Because a lot of those things can intersect in the
Mhm.
public art sector. So if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I love public art because it is so accessible. Like I love that you could just encounter it on your way to work or on your way to school, or the identity that it brings to a community. And it's just uh adds so much, I think, to the community. And beyond just like the creative placemaking, but which I think we need a lot more of in Fairfax. I live right across the river from Georgetown, and like it's such a difference because like there's no sign that says, welcome to Georgetown. You just know that you're there, right? Whereas when I drive like from my home, like into McLean where I live, there's a big sign that says welcome to McLean, but like they're like I'm really looking forward to more public art there, to create a sense of identity and express like what our community is. And it's exciting to see that certain areas again of the community are getting more public art, particularly like around Tyson's. You see a lot of art popping up. But again, like it's all about like, well, what about all the other areas? And it's exciting to me that there are some organizations that are now like really focused on bringing art, and in some cases public art that has like um a mission beyond just art for art's sake, but actually to make a space safer, um and to, like as you were saying, sort of build on like the community spirit and the pride in the place that you live, is so important. And so our most recent grants, those Arts Ignite recovery grants, we really like were the most intentional that we've ever been in a grants program at like asking for that type of projects. And I'm super excited at what we got and to see, how those all turn out in the next year.
I was gonna ask another question, but now I want to like ask this one instead. You just saying, I can see how you lit up when you said, oh my goodness, like what we were so intentional about in our giving, and really excited to see what lies ahead with the funds that you are, providing as a grant making organization. I know one of your many things, tentacles. But especially as somebody who works in that portion of the arts, it must feel really rewarding, doesn't it? Like when, you see these proposals and and then Arts Fairfax then, contributes to these future projects. And then however many months or years down the road, then you're able to go and then enjoy them and see like the fruits of the labor and what that looks like. If you want to, I don't know if you have like anything that jumps
Oh
out at
yeah,
you.
I have like a total like perfect example from like this past weekend, because well, there are a lot, but like just this past weekend. So um Capital One Hall opened, and it's been so exciting to be involved with that project over like the past 7 years, like to see that like was just drawings, and we were like saying to ourselves, oh, wouldn't it be cool if one day we could have the arts awards there? And then it was just like surreal that the event was there. And then just to look around and like, I saw an artist that I had recommended to them, like to do murals on the like, and that like that had worked out. And like, and then that evening going to a performance by, like, I was just so excited to see the community groups performing there because it's such an amazing opportunity, and an unusual, really like gift to the community, the way that we have this partnership with the county to enable them to perform, at a greatly reduced cost in this state of the art hall. And so Gin Dance, who I believe is also based in Reston, was performing there this weekend. And so it was just like, wow, the first dance performance in this amazing new facility. And it's Gin Dance, who, it's just so exciting to see them there. And the first dance they actually performed was inspired by a sculpture in Reston Town Center, the Sue Ripken sculpture, which had grown out of an exhibition that Arts Fairfax had funded. And, so it was just like, wow, all of these things coming together was really special. Yeah.
Wow, that's, it really speaks to the connector, side of who you are, of who we all are within this together. And it really speaks to just how we as humans, the humanity side of it, we can envision something, right? And then it can come to fruition with perseverance, with patience, with a lot of patience, with funding, like all of those things. They're just like all of
yeah. And when it all comes together, it's magic for sure. Yeah. And then I don't know, just like I was talking to Robert at the event and at the Gin Dance performance as well. And it was just like really gratifying to hear about, like, for instance, artists that had exhibitions that Arts Fairfax had funded, and then like knowing and like watching the artists' careers really, like, that could be like a game changer for them, and so those are like the stories that like are just so meaningful that, when you can look back and like, and they can say, wow, that really is what made my career take off. And, I was able to quit my job teaching so that I could, become an artist and do this. And like, yeah, it's pretty special.
Wow, that's amazing.
And to have like some small part in it, yeah, I just feel really grateful.
Well, weirdly, right? It's like, I don't know, it's all relative. Is it a really small part, or, the big impact that happens, so maybe it's not so small after all. So you talked a little bit about Arts Fairfax and a little bit about public art and what it means to you. I guess like I have like one last question is if you can talk a little bit about the overview of the state of public art in Fairfax County, and if you want to, and why you think that public art Reston it plays an important part in that, and wherever we're headed.
So public art Reston is so important because it is the only I would say significant. I don't want to offend anybody by like overlooking. I know a lot of people have public art policies now, throughout the county. Fairfax County Park Authority has a public art policy, but has it actually resulted in any public art? Not that I know of. I mean, it's great that they have that in place. I know other communities like Vienna, the town of Vienna has a public art policy, and they've done some projects, but really like in terms of having a real public art master plan and a track record of such significant projects and, dedicated staff to it, really, we can only look to public art Reston as such a model. And, in terms of like the developer guidelines and so many of the documents and, the resources that you have available, like we're constantly referring to them. And I see it as like potentially like a model that could be or the county as a whole, or other jurisdictions that want to start up such programs. And as we're finishing up the Master Arts Plan for facilities, which was the first phase, and looking forward to beginning the Master Arts Plan for public art, which will be that next phase of it, we have been doing sort of an inventory of the public art projects throughout the county. And, it's very concentrated in Reston, obviously, because of Public Art Reston. But my goal would be to have every magisterial district to have that level of commitment to bringing public art to the community. And it'll be interesting to see what role Arts Fairfax will play in that. We've done a number of temporary projects to get community feedback for the Master Arts Plan for that facilities side of the plan. And I think that we're really well positioned, having done those projects and then also advising other organizations, that I hope that the community will look to us for, ongoing leadership in partnership with Public Art Reston.
That's awesome. It's as many people know, I'm going into the second half of my first year as the new executive director for Public Art Reston. So there are a lot of things that I know and I've learned, but I'm not the person responsible for a lot of the things that you were talking about. I'm the person now responsible with carrying the torch, right? And so I do want to give credit when it's due. And so Andolini had a lot to do with the wonderful projects, the underpasses, the sculptures in Reston Town Center, working with the developers, as you talk about, having a developer kind of like, not a cheat sheet, but like, maybe we'll get there, but like something that it's a guide, right? Something that they can look to and use. And so we will, build on that as well in our next chapter for PAR. But I really do want to mention her, because without her work, you would not have been able to talk about all the things that you just mentioned and described. And of course, not without the founder, where the seed originated, with Joe Ritchie, who is just a fantastic person all around. And just, I think what gives the art soul are the people behind it, and people like him. He's not an artist. He would never identify as such, right? But he's a person who appreciates, a person who understands the value of what art brings. And when we talk about public art, we're talking about the accessibility piece, right? You mentioned what you love about the accessibility is you go and there it is, right? There are no actual physical barriers. There shouldn't be, right? If it's public art, and that's what makes it so great. And so people like a visionary like Joe Ritchie, who are able to see ahead,
Is a visionary.
is quite incredible. So I'm really fortunate to be working alongside someone such as himself, who envisioned this organization. And like you say, obviously like means and people like that are what really allow an organization like Reston to be Public Art Reston. But thinking ahead too of how can we use the models that Public Art Reston has created, right, to then permeate into benefiting other places, right? And as you said, like our Public Art Master Plan is a great, idea. The developers guy, like those are all really great things that PAR offers. So not that I'm trying to plug my organization, but as I'm listening to you talk, I'm in my bubble, right? And it's great to have someone else within the county from your perspective, telling me why you think we are important. And so that is a gift that I just got. So I really do appreciate that.
One of the things I like best about the public art field that you don't find in all areas of the arts is that people are really generous about sharing and, helping one another. And I really appreciate that. I just had a call with somebody yesterday from another county, and I don't think she was as connected in with the public art network yet. And like it surprised her, that I was like, oh, let me send you a list of who I put calls out to. And, are you aware that who the contact is in the Virginia Department of Transportation? Let me give you an introduction and that kind of thing. And like, I feel like I probably wouldn't be where I am, without that type of help. And I think it's really special about our particular area of the arts. That have you noticed that too?
It's so funny that you say that. I've noticed it, but I guess I never really like marinated in it. But what's interesting is like there's a public art kind of like DMV group that Deirdre over from Arlington leads, and she was just so happy to just share and like bring me in. And then Susan Jenkins, from Montgomery County she's been a pleasure as well. And Karen Miller from Golden Triangle Bid, like I feel so welcomed, and people are so willing to offer, to be a sounding board, to exchange a thought partner, right? Or people, like you said, like what you did, here are my contacts and you should meet this person. And like, that's how I had the meeting I did earlier today, because of AFTA connecting them to me, and I'm like, I'm so new, like, I don't know what I can offer you yet. Right. But it is really the spirit of the public art community for sure.
Right.
That does that. And I don't know if it's like that everywhere else, I don't know. But in a lot of other sectors, from what I hear, it's not the same. So
no,
it is.
But I really appreciate that
Yeah.
aspect of it. It makes it just like it's that community, of like supporting one another and helping each other to, to do our work, instead of it having to be like a competitive thing, like, oh, I have this better project, my metro station or something like that, Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sometimes can be the burden of a mindset of maybe people who are not necessarily so enwrapped in the arts, like, who they are at the core. And what I have seen so much, if I can give it a little slogan, is like collaboration over competition, right?
Exactly.
And it's that
That's it.
spirit
Yep.
that makes us move forward as a community, because we're so mission driven, right? We're really trying,
instead of having to sell tickets or something like that, right?
right?
That enables you to be like this.
Right. And at the end of the day, we are stronger when we have more allies, when we have more collaborators, versus if we're going against each other, because that divides. And yet collaboration is always going to bring communities stronger together, because at the end of the day, like humanity, you can't do it by yourself. You need others with you and other support. And that's arts at the core, right? It can start with one person, but art is too good that you can't not share it, right? You want it to be better. You want it to like embrace and encompass all of the joy that life has to bring. So I didn't know if you wanted to share anything else. I don't know if there was something that I may have missed, or if you were in my seat, if you would have asked yourself something else.
I think that we covered everything that we set out to.
And more.
I can't think of anything else.
If you want anyone to be able to connect with you, how could they do that?
So go to our website, ArtsFairfax.org. All of our staff is listed out, as well as our email addresses. And that is the best way to, and sign up for our newsletter.
There you go.
We have a newsletter with all sorts of, opportunities, whether you're just looking for something to do, the latest public art installation, fun things to do, creative things to do with your family. And then we also have an opportunities newsletter that's more focused on the arts community. So that would be like job openings, internships, auditions, funding opportunities, all of that sort of thing. So, and we have a robust calendar of events that you can check out to see what's happening in the community, and an arts directory where you can find Public Art Reston and other arts organizations, artists, whatever you might be looking for.
Yay. That's great. I'm so happy that you were able to join me and carve out some of your precious time to chat. I got to know a little bit more about you, and I will say this to you and to whoever is listening or watching, that when I first got here to Reston, you were so welcoming, with open arms. And I think I might have been your first meeting when you opened up your office.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So I'm
with all the dead plants.
I kind of remember that.
Uh-huh.
So it's just been so great to get to know you, to get to know Arts Fairfax. Like I said, the luncheon last Friday was fantastic. The awards, it was great. So I'm just really grateful for this conversation today. And I hope that whoever was here and listened was able to take away something. And this was Lisa Mariam from Arts Fairfax with Trinity Villanueva from Public Art Reston.